that background too busy? I mean, it's my apartment. I'm not going to do a virtual one, I think.
Fine.
It is what it
fun.
is. It is what it is.
Exactly. It's like 3 months in, we're done being whimsical.
This is like, who cares?
I know. We've all seen the inside of celebrity apartments at this point, so it doesn't matter.
I sometimes I stand in the hallway and I'm like, I haven't used this corner of my house yet.
You know, and like Jose and I are both watching your 24-hour monologue, and so we're like, ooh, Raul's kitchen is very tight. It's a tight kitchen.
That kitchen is crap. The kitchen, this apartment is great, and the kitchen is crap. Crap. And I hadn't tried anything in the kitchen. Yeah, I know. And so I was actually, and although I wasn't necessarily, I didn't have to make the frijoles, but I went ahead and made my aunt's frijoles. Mm-hmm. I wrote to Matthew, and I was like, you gave me a great excuse to make the frijoles.
How was it? Does it taste like hers?
It's phenomenal. Yeah, it does taste like hers. But I've been making those every noche.
Okay.
You usually keep all that Goya in the house, or was it just for the play?
I had a bag of frijoles. I actually had a bag of frijoles. Because also when we were working on Seared, they gave me a bag of Are we starting yet? You guys want to film shit?
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it. It does not matter at this point.
So when I was working on Seared, they gave me a whole bag of frijoles to learn. So Seared's this play I did that Teresa Rebeck wrote. I did last year at MCC, and I played a chef. And in order to learn to do all the like flipping of hot onions and things, we practiced with frijoles, either colorados or negros. And so I had this like huge bag of them. Anyway, so I just used that. Plus I had a little Goya thing, you know.
What were those scallops in Seared made out of? Because I was like, I wonder. What was it?
They were made of plastic.
Oh,
they were like sad. Vegan. I thought they would.
That's sad. That's sad, isn't it? Nobody eats the scallops. Nobody eats the scallops.
They sound like the sizzling sound like it was real.
The sizzling was real. Now there's a lot of stuff that I cooked in Seared, a lot. Mm-hmm. But the scallops is the one thing we did not cook. You did heat the oil, and that thing was incredible because Tim made it look like a real kitchen, and he made it look like the burners were gas from the audience. And I have friends who are set designers who would come up and go, I can't believe you guys fooled me. But all of that was fake. The lighting was fake. They were basically like, you know, little electric like hot plates that your grandmother would take to the beach, you know, to make café con leche. So that's like these little tiny hot plates, and that's what we used. There were 4 of them, or 6 of them, sorry. And they would turn them on. Stage management would control all of it, and everything was faked. But they would get hot enough when they started the play, or at any time that they would do the timing for it, that it could sizzle. You could cook things. You could make a full meal. The salmon that I made in the play, everything was fresh and real. Plus, we had a separate kitchen going backstage, doing all the prep as though we were actually running a restaurant. It was nuts. And the food was good. Actually, the food was really, really good. We worked with a chef named Ben Lickett who created these recipes. They were just sensational. But nobody ate it.
You're theater people. It's a nonprofit theater. Why isn't anyone eating the food?
Because I know, it's a good question. I think I composted everything. Like, nobody on stage actually ate it. It all would just get tossed into the prop bins.
Oh my God! Like mi mamá Latina would not let that happen.
Please. I know. No way.
Yeah. I was at the time that I saw you in Seared, I was dating a chef, and he would always talk about how like anyone can cook if you. It's not about ability; it's just about practice and about learning and learning technique. And so, how would you compare like your cooking at the beginning of it versus?
You know what? I would say that substantially better. Substantially better. Like, I've always liked to cook, and I learned to cook actually because after I went to NYU for undergrad, and then when I graduated from Tisch, I got a job in Chicago not long afterwards, and I was living in Chicago and kind of on my own there. And I couldn't find any Cuban restaurants, and I really learned to cook for myself because I would call home and be like, abuela, you know, ¿cómo se hace, whatever, the frijoles or the masita de puerco or whatever stuff that I grew up with, or the arroz con pollo. I just wanted to learn to cook the food that abuela would make. And at first I sucked at it, but then I got better at that, and I really liked it, and I love to follow recipes. So I find it very calming to be like, take these 10 things and you end up with this, which nothing in life works like that. So I like that.
It's predictable.
Yeah, Seared changed things for me big time. One, I learned to cook a lot faster And I learned to cook without recipes. I learned to cook, like open the refrigerator and go, what do I got in here? Oh, okay, we're okay for dinner. Because usually it would take me 2 hours to be like, what am I gonna make? I gotta get this dish. Sear took the stink off that idea. So I still make the Cuban stuff, but I've learned to just take it easy and not stress out so much. And you're right, practice. Like I'm a faster chopper, I'm a faster everything. But it applies to a lot of stuff. You know, the more you do it, and the better you get at it, and the more you do it, not the easier it becomes, but the less sort of second nature things start to get. And that's nice. You know, it was a great way to act, I'll tell you that. Because doing a play where you have to accomplish something like that on stage is the definition of like a secondary activity, what they talk about in theater school, you know, like where you take an acting class. It's like, always have something to do, always have something to accomplish on stage. This was, I have to make a meal for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You stop acting. You just stop acting.
Because that scene at the top of the second act, it's almost like a scene from a musical. It's like a like dance.
And that's what it felt like. Yes, that's right, Jose. Like at a certain point, people said that I was dancing to the music, which I didn't even notice. But they put in the music they were using. Palmer, the sound designer, had created a piece based on how I was moving, using Tumbao No. 5 by Cachaito, which is this beautiful bass piece. So without my realizing it, halfway through, I was like doing this. And I don't think Harry is in any way Cuban, so I don't know where the...
He could be. He could.
Yeah, why not? Well, between Krista and myself, we were like, all right, we like the music. It's the Latin production.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're here talking to you about doing Tartuffe, the Molière in the Park production. And you've been doing a lot of these virtual acting experiences. Like, what's
a good description for them? They are experiences. Look, you know, it's been a couple of interesting months for all of us. And this is not the way to make theater necessarily, but it is a way to make theater. So it's not the only way, but it is a way to make theater. And honestly, the first month of the pandemic was intensely hard for a lot of personal reasons. And we had a very big loss in our family, a relative, Santiago Miranda, who died in Madrid, and he died by himself. And he was thinking of Nochebuena. We used to spend Nochebuena at his house when I was a little kid, you know. So he was like an uncle to me, and a dear man. And then I had a teacher that died in Miami, and then just relatives who were getting sick. And so the beginning of this felt like, what's the point in getting up in the morning? And I know I'm not the only one who felt that way. And I personally did not get sick, but so many friends were suddenly getting sick, or colleagues who had died. So in the midst of all that, I had the idea to create the Take Me to the World concert for Steve's birthday. And that ended up being a crazy project to put together, but a really wonderful thing. And for a week or two, it felt like we were in a room together. And then friends kind of like would reach out and say, hey, you want to do this little, like sing a little song here? And you say, okay, because it began to fill the days in a way that it was really nice. And I could say about Tartuffe right now, unexpectedly, it feels like we're in a rehearsal hall. Of course we're not, but we get on these Zoom calls essentially that we're rehearsing on, and we come up with ideas, and everybody's talking, and you're reading the play, and you know you're not moving around, and you're still in your apartment, but you are creating something with Lucy, with Samira, with Takara, with Jenny Mudge, whatever scenes we're doing, we're actually working together for a moment. And that's extraordinary. It's a great feeling. So all of this is a long way of saying that all these experiences have helped to fill my days. And they have helped to make me feel like I own a little bit of my creativity and can share it a little bit more. Because as actors, we're always spending our time asking for permission to do the thing that we know how to do. And I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but I think our future and our future opportunities potentially may change, given that we have all had to come to terms with the fact that right now, if we don't create something for ourselves, there's nowhere to go. So yeah, I didn't realize how many doors I had opened to this. It's not easy, but it at least has filled the time. and has alleviated some of the sadness.
Are there things that you have been doing, because you've had to be like your own art director, your own makeup person, and your own director at times. Are there things that you've learned from the art that you've made in quarantine that you think you're going to carry if we ever leave our apartments?
Yes, I feel that for the longest time, I felt that putting myself on tape for anything was a challenge and just the hardest thing in the world. It would take me 4 days to get myself on tape for an audition. And that's just gone. Like any sense of this has to be perfect, and any sense of I don't know what I'm doing, or it's not as good as what I want it to be. It's not a real audition. That's gone. Like I actually called my agents and my manager and apologized. I said, I'm sorry I ever put you through this shit. Like, I'm really sorry. So stupid. Who cares? So there's that. On the other side of it is, I've learned how to light myself a little better. I've learned that I can do it. I've learned that I can just pick up a camera and come up with ideas. There's a project that I worked on 2 summers ago, a musical adaptation of Virginia Woolf's novel, The Waves, which we did a production of at Vassar and for New York Stage and Film. And that production was gorgeous to work on. And so here's this musical, and it occurred to me, it's a musical about 6 friends who grew up together in England and who end up very, very alone in their lives and wish they could all come together again. And I thought, we should do something with this, play with this in quarantine. Now, what comes of it, I don't know. But the fact that I feel like, hey, we could maybe make something out of this. We can maybe create something, turn on our iPhones and see what happens. That's entirely new for me. To think of something that I did in life that was kind of workshop or a creative theatrical event that's like, who knows what's going to happen with it, and to think I can do something with it without having to have a producer in place. So that is another thing I can take from this experience. And I hope more actors actually have that sense of like, why not? Why not take charge of my own ability to create things?
What was the appeal of doing Tartuffe for you right now? Is it because the comedic aspect, kind of escapism, or is it like the righteousness of taking down someone who is terrible?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I've always loved the play. I really like Lucy very, very much. And we had talked about working on a project together. So she asked me to do this, and I thought it would be kind of a fun thing. My very first professional job as an actor in Miami was at the Coconut Grove Playhouse in a Cuban adaptation of Tartuffe called Mixed Blessings, written by Luis Santeiro, who was the writer for Sesame Street for many years and who wrote a series that was seminal in my life called Que Pasa USA, which was a completely bilingual sitcom about a Cuban family. And so I'm very fond of this particular play because it was my first professional experience. And I was also excited by the theme of what the play is about, because we're living through a time right now where everybody feels, at least in terms of positions of power, it feels like we're being led by a lot of con artists. And I felt like that had something to say, and something to say about how people take it back and say, we're not falling for this bullshit. And also then the last thing is I wanted to see how this could work. I'm curious about, it's a little bit of an experiment of a way to do some theater in the interim. And I think that what Molière in the Park is trying to do here is really, really creative. It's not, who knows what it's going to be, but I think it's just a really creative and interesting way to try to make something out of the limitations that we're living through right now. And they're bursting with ideas. So I wanted to see how that works, because this is all very new sort of technology and a new world.
I think one of my favorite things that's happening right now is that there's people, for instance, who know you from Law and Order, but they're like, wait, he can sing? Because they've never seen you on stage. And what's happening right now is giving access to Latinos, to people of color, to people that are often kept from the theater, because it's it can be like very classist, and it can be very like it can look like a certain way. And I wonder if you're encountering that, like people are suddenly discovering that you're this, like probably the most one of the most famous Latinos on Broadway, and they're like, oh wow, like why didn't he sing Law and Order.
I've always thought we should have done a musical episode of Law and Order. Benson hits her head, and then we all end up in the courtroom singing and dancing. Mariska would totally go for it. I know she would. She was so obsessed with Hamilton. I think she saw it 22 times. How could she get tickets is what I want to know.
How many times did you see it?
3. 3. But I saw it at the public, you know. That was I still remember with Hamilton that because Renee Elise had worked on SVU, and I've known Brian Darcy James for so many years, and Leslie is a dear friend, and people would come in, or I would see friends, and they would say, "Oh my God, this musical, this Hamilton musical, oh my God, it's so good. The workshops are so great." And I would say, "Yeah, I'm sure it's good. Whatever. Yeah, I'm sure it's nice." No, you don't understand, Raúl. I'm like, "Yeah, you guys, whatever. You guys are being nice, and Lynn's talented. It's nice." We went to go see it at the public. The very first second Leslie walked on stage, I burst into tears, and then I cried through the entire first act. And then the people next to me were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. This is so good." Just sobbing. Oh my God. So in terms of like, you know, theater has always been my love, because I love the relationship to the audience. And I never thought that I would necessarily be an actor who made a lot of film or TV, because I never really felt like I cracked it. Law and Order came out of the fact that Warren Light and I had worked on Leap of Faith. And it was supposed to be a couple of guest star parts, episodes. And then it turned into a really wonderful thing, because he wrote beautifully. I really hit it off with Mariska. And they are just a tremendous group of people over there. They're just a beautiful crew. And the surprising thing about television fame, it doesn't happen immediately, but as the show goes on, you're suddenly recognized all over the world. And that begins to open doors to people who didn't know my work before. And that comment about, "Oh, I didn't know you sang," like that is, it was constant. You know, it's constant. But if the work on television brings people to my work on stage or any of the other things that I've done, then I think that is extraordinarily good. And in terms of what's going on now, for instance, in the world, and the concept of like being a Latin actor, you know, I can't tell you guys the number of times I've been told, "Change your name. You don't look like what we expect you to look like. You're not Cuban enough. You're not," and what they mean by that is you don't look right to play, you know, drug runner number 3 or marimbero with the hairnet. Or, because auditions that I would go into for movies in Miami would be like, no, you don't look Cuban. I'm like, well, what do you people mean coming out of Hollywood to tell me what Latin is? So it was a very big deal to me to hang on to who I am and where I come from, and to own that over and over and over again. And the very first time I saw my name on a marquee on Broadway, not the very first time, but when I saw it for company, actually, because it was so huge, and it said Raúl Esparza over the Barrymore Theater marquee, all I could think about was like, that's my dad's name, and that's my grandfather's name, and that's my great-grandfather's name, because we're Cuban and we all call each other Raúl. We're very creative, but we're all like, there's a whole history there of men who lived in Cuba, men who came to this country. And then the fact that I get to be up there and carry their name forward was just a really big deal to me. And I hope, because I hope that whatever little bit I did helped open doors to more Latin actors getting the opportunity to play whatever parts they want to, instead of being told, "You're not enough of what we think the stereotype is." So to me, it's very important, and it's also really great to talk about it now and to own it and to not apologize for it. I mean, not that I ever apologize for it, but to just really be loud about it, which is wonderful. Because I do feel a little bit like we're still pretty underrepresented in the theater world, and on television and film. But I hope that it's getting. We're gonna be able to take that into our hands a little more.
Right. I mean, when I first read that anecdote about you, like seeing your name on the marquee for the first time and realizing like I didn't have to change my name. And it made me think of like Lindsay Mendez's Tony acceptance speech in 2018 when she got the same advice to change her name. And so do you think the industry has gotten better in terms of like you said, people being more open with it? Because I feel like right now there's like a floodgate of people like being really honest about the darker, more racist aspect.
No, I don't think the industry's gotten better about opening doors. I really don't. I feel that we are taught to expect a certain look from people, and definitions of race and ethnicity are created a lot of times in this industry, particularly by what comes out of Hollywood, by people who are very ignorant about what they're doing. And I feel that it's imperative. Excuse me. I feel that it's imperative to keep making a lot of noise about it. I told you about that Mixed Blessings playwright. The woman playing my grandmother, who was this huge Cuban star named Belia Martinez, who was on Que Pasa USA, was given an outfit. She was supposed to be playing a Spanish, like in a costume for a Spanish dancer or something as a joke at the end of Act 1. They put her in a flamenco outfit, and they also put a big basket of like fruit on her head, like she was Carmen Miranda. And they give her a serape, you know, as like a wrap. And she was like, "The hell is this?" And she was insulted about it, actually, you know. That kind, and this was many years ago, but that kind of thing comes at you all the time. I remember when I did Evita, the 20th anniversary tour of Evita, which it was wonderful to get to do and to play Che, which is a complicated role for a Cuban actor to play, especially Son of Exiles. They would say to me, "Oh, well, you know, this is a very authentic production of Evita." And I'd be like, "Why?" And they said, "Well, you know, because you're Cuban and everybody's Latin." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm Cuban, your Ava is Puerto Rican, and your Perón, I think, has Mexican heritage. How does that make any of us more Argentine? How does that make us more authentic?" So actually, I think just because we speak the same language, we do not share the same values, and we are very different people. It's the same thing I always felt growing up in Miami, where they'd be like, put your name, you know, you're white, you're black, you're Latin, and I'd be like, "Well, I'm white, but I am also Latin. What am I?" So they'd be like, "Put other." I'm like, well, other isn't an answer for anything. So I really feel like, yes, the floodgates are opening, and that's fantastic. But I think we have to get louder instead of getting quieter. I think we have to make a hell of a lot more noise. And I think that people need to continuously educate themselves about the assumptions we make, or the stereotypes we have about who people are. I mean, the number of times too I've been asked, like, "Hey, do you speak Cuban?" We're like, "Well, that's not a language." But I do speak Spanish. Or they'll say, "You don't sound Cuban." I'm like, "What do you mean?" What does that mean?
So
and that's also just the, well, yeah, but what they mean by that is that I don't sound like this because this is what Cubans sound like.
Yeah, they expect you to sound like Ricky Ricardo, right?
Yes. "Hey, I am Cuban now. That's what I sound like if I'm Cuban." Look, some of that's funny, and some of that is extraordinary. Look, speaking of Ricky Ricardo, did anybody transform television more than Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball? If you think about that man being the genius that he was, understanding that his wife needed that platform, understanding that how to build a studio audience and a 3-camera shoot, and do all of the things that we took for granted forever for sitcoms. Desi Arnaz created that, you know, and then to head a studio. So all that joking led to a great deal of power. But it's a struggle that has to constantly keep getting renewed. And I think it's important to know that we need to own that for ourselves, and decide, you know, whether the joke's on us or we're the ones telling it.
Have you ever played the part where you were actually surprised that you got it because you thought that the cards were stacked against you?
That's a good question. I was surprised I got cast to play George Surratt in Sunday in the Park with George. Remember that. But that was because I was so new here. I was so entirely new. And nobody, I had done Tick Tick Boom, and I had done Rocky Horror. And that was like a huge like starring role, and that opened so many doors. But that was very surprising to me. I I have to say that no, I have never felt, other than things like that, where like I'm not famous enough, or I'm not sort of well known enough, or I'm not really seriously in the running. I have never felt like the cards have been stacked against me in any way because I'm Latin necessarily, except when it comes to Latin parts, and then I have just simply don't get cast.
Oh.
They just will not. I can't. Barba was a Cuban character because Warren made him a Cuban character, and we decided to go for that, and that was a part of his story. But I think that's about it for major things I've done professionally, where someone will see me as a Latin role. So the cards are stacked against me in the opposite way, in that for Latin parts, again, I don't look like what the expected stereotype is. And I'm not really even sure what they mean by that, to tell you the truth. As I'm not sure they know what they're looking for. I remember coming in for Cape Man to audition when I was still living in Chicago, and that amazing music that Paul Simon had written. Coming in for audition with Paul Simon and singing for him, and he said, that was really good. He said, but you're Cuban, so you can't possibly play Puerto Rican. I'm being like, okay.
I mean, do you think it's also like part of the like, and Jose, tell me if I'm like using the right language for this, in terms of like the inter-Latinx conversation about like just a different in terms of like colorism, in terms of like what's seen as what's seen as stereotypically Latin versus like what the population, what the people actually look like, which spans like a whole range, like around like the very, it's like the identity is very, like it's varied.
Yes.
And American culture not being able to recognize the fact that there's of like a diversity within Latinx culture.
Yes. I think Latinx culture feels too varied and too multiple to be contained. And people in Hollywood, especially, I feel a little bit less so with the theater, because the theater feels like a place where talent can really blossom, and the talented people can come in the room and kind of blow you away, and they'll get hired, hopefully. With Hollywood, at least, I think that there are constant efforts to put people in boxes, because it is easier, because you are casting personalities, types, and not necessarily, I mean, sometimes glorious actors. Of course, film acting is brutally hard when it's well done, but they're also casting inside a container of an idea of, so that no acting is necessary, so that you can simply look like the role, and that's the definition. And I think that also in American culture, there is such a constant interest in things being black and white, things being absolutely yay or nay, A or B, and there's no room for complexity. And that means there's no room for complexity in human experience either. There's no room for the difficult explanations. It's the thing Hillary Clinton kept saying, like, I can't give you an answer that is a soundbite about these issues. That man can, but I can't. And then they attack her for that. Or anybody that spoke, Obama was too intelligent, he spoke too well. They don't want to hear the clear, more complicated version of things. They want to hear the easy answer. And I think it does also apply to this, to what we're talking about here, that multitudes with many different colors and shapes and sizes, and varieties of experience within something that they want to call Latin is uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable, and not at all the way that is easy for decisions to be made, particularly in entertainment and also in politics. Look, my experience as a Cuban American growing up in Miami is very different from someone who is Nuyorican. We share many things, but there are other aspects, or someone who grew up with a Mexican family, say in Chicago, or in California. Everybody, we carry our cultural heritage with us, and we carry our families with us, our ancestors, and all of the history that shapes us. But the cities themselves take in a very different energy. In Miami, to be Cuban was to be king of the world. At least I thought, until I left and I realized, oh, wait a minute, that was just my version of Miami in the 70s and 80s. there was a whole other thing going on that I didn't know about. You know, a whole other concept of what was political, what was political power, and what was the focus of life in the city at the time. But to me, whereas I had met other kids who were raised to feel almost ashamed of speaking Spanish, of being part of the culture, and had to sort of rediscover it later. I wanted to be so American when I was growing up among all the Cuban kids in Miami, and then I left, and all I wanted to do was be Cuban. But I didn't know that. So I think that, yeah, I feel that we all we complicate things on a bigger scale than people are comfortable with.
Let's celebrate our culture then. What's your absolute favorite word in Spanish? And if it's a curse word, I'm gonna love you even more.
Come mierda. Come mierda. No seas come mierda.
I love it.
That's my favorite. I'm always trying to teach people how to curse in Spanish because I always feel like, come on, English is all right, but you got nothing on us.
It's music.
Yes, it is. It is, and also because we could say it so fast and emphatically. And it's code. It's true, my favorite words are always like the curse words, but I don't know a Cuban who doesn't curse every other minute.
When all of this is over, are you looking forward to being in a show or to seeing a show the most?
I'm looking forward to seeing shows. I really am. I took it for granted that I could just kind of go see my friends do stuff. And now I wish I hadn't. First of all, theater's too expensive. So I hope that one of the things that changes right now is that nobody could afford a $300 ticket or a $400 ticket or $200. Like, hopefully this will make some intrinsic changes in the structure of how we price theater and who theater is available to, I hope. But that being said, I took it for granted that I could go just see stuff and support stuff, and then it was so expensive, so I didn't always do it. But now I'm like, I want to go back. I want to be out there and see what people are creating. This is the greatest city in the world. I think it's the capital of the world, New York, and I miss the energy of it. It's so inspiring, and I want to get out there. And because Joe Papp once said that the artists need an immediate environment to create. You get chipped away at like a block, a sculpture. Well, there's no more immediate environment, he said, than New York City. And I think it's true. And I've been so aware of it in the silence for the last 3 months. I'm like, God, we live here so that we can all shape each other. That's how we get better. Not easy, but it's amazing. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, I admire you for not running away like a lot of other people.
I've been tempted. And you know what? Like, I've been tempted too. Like, my parents the family's in Miami, and if they weren't in their 70s, I think I might have raced down there. But I also, if I had gone down to Miami, which is very nice, I don't think I would have done any of the, as you say, theatrical experiences that I have been part of. I certainly wouldn't have put together Take Me to the World like that. No way. No way would I have thought to dream outside the box of certain things. I wouldn't have joined the Tartuffe company, I think. This is all about making the best out of necessity. And where else would we be? Where else should we go through this? This is home. I think I'm proud to be here and support the local restaurant. I didn't realize how much that's our life in the city is made by the blocks that surround us, the places that open, the bodega, the 2 little Spanish places on the other block, the bar that's been closed. Like our lives are shaped so, the bookstore, whatever it is, the people we see at the gym, it's actually very small when you think about it. So it's been nice to be in it with everybody.
Well, we don't want to take up more of your time, but thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Where else can people see you after Tartuffe and plug all your projects?
After Tartuffe, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on that actually, Jose, because as the summer begins, there's a lot of stuff that's sort of in suspension. right now we're talking about like, are we going back to filming? Or are we gonna like start when can we start rehearsals? When can we get into a theater type situation? So that's I don't have anything to plug. It's just a lot of stuff that's in the air.
Yeah.
The reality of that is getting me down a little bit.
No, the uncertainty would drive you crazy if you think about it too hard. Yeah.
I had that this morning too, reading about like outbreaks in churches and stuff. And I'm like, when is this going to end? You know, I just see a future. Like, I think about my parents where I go, are they going to be able to leave the house? Like, they can't, this is not a way to live. None of us can make plans.
I know, it's so weird to know, like, because my parents are in California, they're also in their 70s, and I'm like, it's weird knowing I don't know when I'm going to be able to see them.
Yeah. I don't know when we're going to see, we don't know when we're going to see our folks. I had a really dear friend here in New York who lives downtown in her 80s, and she was like, this is going to be the rest of my life. And I'm like, no, it's not. But then she goes, really? Because you may be able to go out and survive this, but if I get it, she goes, so I'm going to be stuck indoors. I'm like, oh, I don't think that's necessarily true, but people are working very hard to try to come up with treatments and hopefully a vaccine. But the reality is I don't see how the theater comes back physically without a vaccine. Maybe smaller theaters can get a little bit more creative, and theaters outdoors. But if you think about it too much, yeah. And I do miss seeing friends. Although we're starting to a little bit, right?
Quarantine bubble. I call it quarantine bubble.
Yeah, you're okay, but you're not. Well, I don't know why you're okay, but yeah.
No. It's like I've been quarantined. Jose's been quarantined, so we can like see each other in person because we know that we haven't been seeing other people. It's kind of like being in a relationship.
It's exactly like being in a relationship. Don't go to the sex club. Don't go out. I know there's so many things that are like I got tested. My doctor said you need to get tested for COVID. There were some questions about a headache that I had that was just driving me crazy and all this stuff. And everything came up negative. And I thought, this is great. Is it? and so then we're like, okay, we call friends and go like, okay, we're okay. You guys have been in quarantine. Or like, we got tested too. We're negative. Oh, great. The 4 of us can spend time together. But we still wear masks and we still stand slightly apart. It's led to some interesting experiences in the city. Sitting outside on the sidewalk at night, having a drink with friends at 9 o'clock, I never thought I'd be doing that, like just in the middle of the city, like, just like on a sidewalk. I don't know if you guys are doing that, but it's like, okay.
I'm strolling with alcohol. I don't sit in one place.
I feel like I'm in New Orleans all of a sudden. I'm like, let's get a hurricane. But everything's closed. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, we should all get margaritas. Muchas gracias, Raúl. Y mucha mierda y éxitos en tus proyectos que vienen.
Muchísimas gracias. Es un placer hablar con ustedes, la verdad.
Y contigo también, que disfrutes
de
tu verano.
Igualmente. Hasta luego.